honorable parliamentarians, both former and current, Your Excellencies from the Diplomatic Corps, esteemed scholars, experts, civil society colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening and a very warm welcome to all of you. On behalf of the OneText initiative, it's my pleasure and privilege to welcome you to this inaugural dialogue on constitutional reform. Your presence here today, across political divides, professional disciplines, and ideological traditions, signals something deeply important, a shared recognition that Sri Lanka stands at a constitutional moment, a moment for the renewal of our deep social contract, and that the future of our republic must be shaped through dialogue rather than division. A constitution is not merely a legal document. It's a collective promise, a shared vision of how power is exercised, how dignity is protected, how differences are accommodated and managed, how communities and nations can come together as a polity driven by common vision and purpose. Our constitutional history reminds us that durable constitutions cannot be imposed, rushed, or owned by any single institution or political force. They must be built through consensus, joint ownership, and a sense of shared responsibility for the future. Some of these things that you might hear a third time over, nevertheless, it's important to reiterate. This is not a lesson we draw in the abstract. Past constitution making efforts in Sri Lanka have shown that even where technical expertise was strong and legislative majority was achievable, the absence of sustained inclusivity, political consensus, and meaningful citizens' participation weakened legitimacy and stalled progress. That is why in constitution making, process matters as much as the outcome. At a time when trust in institutions is fragile, constitutional reform must follow a path that is transparent, inclusive, and principled. It must allow space for disagreement, for learning, and for listening, particularly across ideological and political boundaries. No constitution can succeed if it is perceived as exclusionary, partisan, or elite-driven. It is also important to be clear that why this constitution making process must begin without delay. Sri Lanka will always face urgent challenges: economic recovery, public health crisis, natural disasters, and social instability, to mention a few. Yet, our recent experience has made one reality undeniable. Many of these crises, including the economic meltdown, were not merely the result of external shocks, but of deep governance failures. An erosion of the rule of law, unequal access to state power, weakened accountability, and a culture of impunity. Addressing immediate recovery needs is essential, but without structural constitutional reform, such responses will remain temporary rather than durable. What we attempt through OneText initiative is a modest and a humble contribution to this larger national effort. We do not claim authority, ownership, or final answers. Instead, we offer this initiative as a platform, a space where ideas can meet, where differences can be articulated respectfully, and where common ground can gradually be discovered. We fully recognize the central role of all stakeholders in this journey. In particular, we acknowledge the importance of the elected government, which carries the people's mandate to initiate and implement reform, as well as the opposition political parties whose engagement is essential for legitimacy, balance, and sustainability. Equally vital are constitutional experts, social scientists, economists, academics, civil society actors, all comprising both men and women, women's groups, marginalized and vulnerable communities, and engaged citizens, each bringing knowledge, experience, and perspectives that no single group can substitute. Let me be clear, we are not dogmatic about the kind of constitution Sri Lanka should adopt. We are not driven by predetermined model. What guides us are principles, equality and equity among citizens, respect for diversity, accountable and limited government, and good governance rooted in the rule of law. These principles are not ideological luxuries, they are the foundations of a stable and democratic society. Our approach seeks to bring together specialists, experts, both those present here today and many others across the country and overseas, to engage rigorously and constructively with co-constitutional questions Sri Lanka faces. It also seeks to ensure that diverse ideological perspectives speak to one another, not past one another, and that political stakeholders are engaged in structured dialogue aimed at consensus rather than confrontation. The ultimate goal is not an OTI constitution, it's a Sri Lankan constitution, one where every participating group can say, this reflects our voice, this carries our imprint, this is something we collectively own. In that sense, the real custodians of this process are not the organizers or initiators, but the participants. As many political leaders across the spectrum have now acknowledged, constitutional reform is not optional, it is essential. The question before us is whether we approach it with openness, humility, and cooperation, or allow mistrust and fragmentation to prevail. I therefore invite all of you, political leaders, experts, scholars, civil society colleagues, and partners, to walk this path together, engage critically, contribute constructively, and hold us accountable to the principles we espouse. Your support, guidance, and participation will ensure that this process succeeds. Let me conclude by thanking each of you for being here this evening, for lending your time, your credibility, and your commitment to this dialogue. We look forward to learning from you, working with you, and building a shared constitutional vision for Sri Lanka. Thank you very much.